Hi,
Hi, Luigi.
it was weeks that I could not connect. I have written a message, sorry. I
It
was
it it, it
way
is all
behind.
good. I just read it. It's good. I'm glad you're here. I hope
Thank you.
you had a chance to relax and recover, and
Yeah,
it is all
yeah.
good. Wonderful. Hi, Amir. Hi, Avishai.
Hey,
Hi there. I realized I muted myself for a while. I was like, why can't I hear them? And my computer was muted.
Nice. Amir, I'm surprised you're not at the LF. You're not in Tahoe.
No, after Detroit, KubeCon, which was an absolutely great conference, I just needed a break from traveling, so didn't make it out to Napa.
Cool. Awesome. We'll give maybe one more minute, but in the meantime, feel free to throw yourself in the meeting notes. If you have anything you want to talk about, throw them on.
We can share the Mastodon handle in the Zoom chat.
There you go. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, I'm expecting with the LF Summit, probably won't have a few folks that are usually here, which is fine. Doing project updates. The one thing that I would like to spend a little bit of time on are kind of attestations and kind of what I'm really looking for is a few volunteers to help kind of drive that work forward. Yeah, more on the like the V team assembly, whatever you want to call it. So we can chat about that. The MVSR is posted is in the meeting notes. It's kind of describes at a high level what we're trying to do. And I think we're like a week or two maybe away from a proof of concept. Let's see. If there's anybody that would like to introduce themselves that hasn't been at one of these before, you're welcome. Don't feel obligated, but you could welcome new members time in the agenda. Cool. Okay, so I guess we could just kind of go down project updates. Luigi, notwithstanding your previous comment, is there anything you wanted to chat about in terms of the security insights?
I have no particular update, honestly, but I know what I want to do. I want open issue in the repo of OpenSSF and introduce people to security insights. This is my goal for the next weeks.
Okay. I thought it would actually also be interesting to use. Well, we'll get to it when we talk about attestations, but just occurred to me that we could use security insight. So if Scorecard doesn't adopt insights anytime soon, we can use insights ourselves to kind of get to the same point in terms of making decisions based off of that information. We can chat about it a little bit though. So for office hours, so the first office hours was, so I don't want to like make any decisions without Marta, which actually is another thing I need to talk about, which is EU over work group meeting. But I think the last, so it was held, I think, on the 28th. Well, it was scheduled to be held on the 28th. There was a registration sign up. Nobody signed up, so there was nothing to do. So I'm not sure what Marta's thinking on what the next step there is. I still think that there is a opportunity here. Maybe it's just lack of marketing around it, or people didn't really want to do the pre-registration thing. I don't know how much of a how much that filters out. Maybe just having it be open. I don't know, but we'll.
I was generally interested to that project. In the last week, I was just not able to join nothing, honestly. But I can write to Marta and ask more info and just align with her, and then try to
It'd be awesome. I know she. I mean, she does. She's active on the Slack channel, so
okay,
that'd be easiest, I think. Cool. Security review video walkthrough. So we did this one Monday this week. We did an Amazon SDK library for Python. To be honest, it didn't go as well as I had. It didn't go as well as I had it going in my mind going into it, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just overly critical. But I think we can tweak some things. I didn't want to do a lot of prep work, because then it would be more of a lecture and less of a stream of consciousness. And I think the stream of consciousness provides a lot of the value there. But either way, it was an hour of conversation and real time looking at a thing. Realized screen resolution probably needs to be a little bit more amenable, and things like that. But I think we should do it again. Maybe pick a simpler or less important, not less important, but less used component, on the idea that if it's an Amazon component, like I'm sure they have lots of people looking at it. Probably not going to find the same issues that we would if we targeted the 25,000th most downloaded, PyPy or NPM component. So I think the next step is schedule another one of these for, I don't know, early December. I don't want to wait until the new year, but like that. Pick it out in advance. And then have someone else drive it. Shouldn't. First one was me, but should have other folks do it too. Any thoughts? What's on this one?
Yeah, I had a quick thought here. I'm sorry for my naivete. I haven't been able to join the last couple meetings, but I'm looking through the notes here, and is this essentially like a video of an assessment of a project security posture?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's not a walkthrough of the results. It's a walkthrough of, like, if I said, like, Amir, Django, go, and we're going to video you as you're like, oh, where is that? Let me get it. Okay, let me look. Like everything that you would do, and kind of talking out loud through it. That's kind of what we're thinking.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I could probably provide some insights here. I just worry calling it a security review is, I would almost want to just call it like a security posture assessment, because typically when I think of security review, I think of like a formal manual code review by like an independent expert, and
it is a code review. I mean, it is supposed to be that kind of like running the tools, looking at the output, looking at the code, being like, oh, this thing has an auth function. That's interesting. Let's look at it. Like, so it's not a run scorecard or sees this project active, or does it have any, publicly known vulnerabilities. It is intended to be a in-depth thing. Now, I don't know how much, like, to time box that to an hour, that is a trade-off. But that's what I was thinking. And maybe there's value for like the posture assessment as well. But
It's just, at least to my understanding, there's very few, people in the world that can really do that effectively.
and that's exactly why we want to do this. Because we want to demystify, it, and like none of the activities that take place are like these magical bestowed, only 5 people have this knowledge at any given time. Like, anybody can do this. But it's kind of like the way I look at it is, it's kind of like doing a threat model. Being in a threat modeling session with people that are really good at this, uncover things that wouldn't, that often wouldn't otherwise be found. But you could emulate that by being in the room with them and see, I never thought of the thing, and then you ask the question yourself and you get better at it, and all that. So, maybe the ultimate like end of this is a more codified, written down approach to how one does a security review, and what to look for, and then why you chose certain things. But in the meantime, like, I don't know of a resource like that already exists. So I figured, let's do these and then have that kind of get distilled down into something more consumable. I don't know, I'm making this up as I go.
It's a cool concept, absolutely. Yeah, so I'd say it's worth exploring.
Yeah. Would you like to participate in one of these? I would love to have you in the room, or have other folks that do that. Like basically what I'm looking for is, I want a few folks that do this like as a day job, like doing this.
Yeah, if I don't have any existing meetings at that time, I wanted to make it on Monday, but I had a partner meeting. But yeah, if I can make it, I'd love to participate.
Awesome. Cool. Then I will get another one scheduled out, and I'll doodle it and find a time that hopefully works for everybody. Cool. See, virtual summit maintainers. Is there anybody that can talk about where this is? And how about metric dashboard?
Actually, I was going to ask about metric dashboard. I haven't received any communications about that. I don't know if I'm not on the right list or whatever.
I would just ping Jay to make sure that you are. I get some of the. Well, let's see. Wait, because I thought all the invites were on the public calendar, and hopefully should be using the Slack channel. Like, it shouldn't be. Like, there shouldn't be any like private mailing lists for that.
Oh no, I thought. Anyway, I'll check the channel.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think the meeting invites. They should be somewhere on the public calendar, but Jay would know for sure. All right, so
I had a quick question about metrics dashboard.
Yeah.
Was it one of the only places that showed scorecards in kind of like a graphical, like kind of easy to digest way?
No.
Because I remember using the metrics dashboard, it kind of had that nice little visual of the different
Yep.
scorecard checks, and I haven't been able to find that anywhere else. So I'm wondering.
Check out deps.dev. So on the bottom right of that, they do have the scorecard, and it's fine. Like, it's not as colorful as the one that we did, but I mean, it has all the scorecard checks and the rating and the you know, the thing like that.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. And there is also security scorecards.dev. And I don't know what they plan to do with this. Right now, it looks like it's just a docs site for it. But I thought, I could be completely wrong here, but I thought one of the intentions was to still keep collecting the data in somewhere in Bigtable or one of these, and have an API surface through scorecards.dev where you could say, just give me the JSON for scorecards for project X and get the stuff back. I'm not sure where that is, but services. Okay. Okay. EU time for work group meeting. I did this once, and I thought that we set it up to be a recurring calendar invite. It was not, so it only happened once, and then because I'm a slave to my calendar, it out of sight, out of mind. So what I think we did, I really want to do this again. So we'll do like week 1 US, week 2 EU, week 3 US, week 4 off. So it's the same thing that we have now, except in one of the meeting weeks that we don't meet every month, we'll also have an EU meeting, and this will be at like, I don't know, 10 p.m. Pacific time. So it'll be not, I think that was the time that's like not completely awful in Europe. If we have to do, we'll keep playing with this. I think the last time nobody showed up, so I wasn't sure that it was needed, but I want to give it a couple more tries before abandoning it. Don't feel obligated to come to the EU time if that's not convenient for you. Okay, I can definitely fill up the rest of the time with Alpha Omega stuff, but if there's anything else that anyone would like to talk about, that can take precedence.
I'm curious about Alpha Omega, honestly. So if you want to proceed.
Cool. If anybody changes their mind, stop me and say, hey, can we talk about X instead? And I'll say yes. Okay. So there is an MVSR here, so I'd encourage you to take a look at that. This and I'm not going to like read it or go through it in a lot of detail, but I'll try to explain the problem that we're trying to solve. And I think it's actually two problems. One is very tactical for Omega. So for Omega, we'll run some tools. We'll do a thing against against left pad. And if we find something, then we will communicate with the maintainers of left pad and we'll get the issue fixed. And all of that whole remediation process will kind of happen like behind the screens. And then a new version of left pad will pop out, and there'll be a CVE or GitHub advisory or whatever, and we'll get mentioned in there, and the whole world is one bit safer. If we look at right pad and we see no problems at all, then we just move on. And the question is, what should Omega provide to the world to let the world know that we looked at both left pad and right pad? And the reason that I think that's important is, number one, well, part of it is like the scope of Omega is like the top 10,000 most critical open source projects. Someone should be asking us like, so how many have you done? How close are we? Like, is 10,000, like, you know, what have you guys done? And so we want to be able to have that metric to look at, but we also want to provide it outside so that when someone else wants to look at WritePad, they say, well, Omega already looked at it, so do I need to? Maybe, but maybe not. But having that there. So that's kind of the most tactical, like, you know, that solves like a small part of the problem. But I think that there's a bigger problem that, and as we were kind of thinking about this is where we started this, we got to a different place. The different place that we got to is assurance activities. So whether it's running code, doing a manual security review, checking the scorecard data, checking for public vulnerabilities, checking to see if it's reproducible, checking to see if this thing implements crypto, or anything else that you could think of as that would be an indicator of a project or a package's security quality, let's say. Right now, today, your choice of what to do about that is you can look for public vulnerabilities, which is just like one small slice of that, or you can do a whole bunch of work yourself. Some of it's easier because you can just like run scorecards, but some of it's much harder. And wouldn't it be cool if there was a public repository of statements? Essentially, Omega ran CodeQL and SemGrep against a thing, didn't find anything significant. Or they found something, but it turned out to be false positive. Or we tried to reproduce it and we could reproduce it and it was fine. Or any of these other kind of assurance activities. So you run, so first of all, you automate as much of this as you possibly can. So the only thing I don't think you can automate is the manual review part. So you automate you automate 98% of it. And you dump the results into a repository, registry, whatever you want to call it. And then they sit there. And then you as a consumer, you write a policy. The policy you write, and I mean a technical policy, not a documentation policy. The policy you write is, I will only consume open source that has undergone static analysis from one of these 3 tools and come back clean in the past 6 months. Today, that the only way you can run that policy is by doing a giant, enormous amount of work yourself. So if these assertions, and we'll call these things assertions because you're asserting that you've done something. You have this giant registry full of millions of these assertions. You have policy that references those and queries those and executes against them, and then comes back with a left pad pass, right pad fail. And then you as a consumer can decide what to do with that. You can say, well, it failed because it's not reproducible. And you can decide, is that, what do you want to do about that? But you defined the policy, you the consumer. Okay, I think that's like the 100-floor elevator pitch. What do you think?
So the idea is that there are some scanner, CodeQL, for example. You have the output and the consumer define their own policy and then check the result of the scan, right?
No, well, maybe. So here, sorry, if you go back to the Where is it? Let me post a link to the.
Because, I mean, the scanner part, it's very interesting, in my opinion. We know the scanner have a lot of false positive.
Right.
But, I mean, the vulnerability scanner cannot work. So usually I don't trust so much if scanners say that there are sub-dependencies that have vulnerabilities. But it's more interesting, for example, the result by the linter that is not security, but give me more information than a vulnerability scanner, for example.
Sure. So and the way that I was thinking about this isn't a. I want to be careful. It's not about having the results of scans in a public database. It's about having a derived result from those scans available in that database. And I think that's important because if it's a vulnerability scanner, it's going to have a bunch of unfixed vulnerabilities. Now they may be in the middle of a much larger pile of false positives and noise and garbage, but they're still there. And there's, I think, an argument to be made that we don't want to give the attackers like, too much advantage.
Okay.
Here. So, but at the same time, you have to balance that with like, the point that we're doing, like the whole reason that we're doing this is to give consumers a, better insight into the risk that they have today. And so the what you do about code scanners, I think, is like one of the harder ones on like, what do you actually provide? I posted a link to the, in fact, let me share my screen and just do it this way. That work? Okay. So somewhere down here, there's an example of, okay, so this is what an attestation against, trying to answer the question, are there any security advisories? And this came from deps.dev. So the important thing here is the subject. So this was run against NPM Express 4.3, and the content of the assertion is that there were 2 medium security advisories found. We also happen to embed the evidence, which of that. Number one, because for deps.dev, it's ephemeral. So, if you query it again tomorrow, it may have a different content. It's not really reproducible. So that's why the reproducibility is temporal. But the idea being that you can write a policy then to say that for every component that you use, you want to make sure that there is a recent security advisories, assertion generated by that generator with security advisories content of nothing critical, let's say, or nothing critical or high, or whatever, however you want to express that. And then
this is interesting. The idea, especially for, it's remind me of, but maybe I'm wrong, a vulnerability scanner, honestly. So you have, for every package that you check the CVE or the GitHub security alerts or something similar.
Yeah.
But sometimes you are not interested to all the security vulnerability of packages. Maybe the low-level informational are not so important, and so the granularity is important. And at the same time, it would be great if you can. I mean, sometimes there are sub dependencies that you are not sure that your project is using or not. So it would be great to have a way to understand if the project is using or not a particular sub dependencies. Usually sub dependencies. I don't know how to define it.
Yep. Yes. So that is an incredibly important topic, and SemGrep came out with there's a blog article, maybe, or not SemGrep, R2C, I guess, but maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, saying that when you basically trace control and data flow from a app through all of its open source dependencies, and then you compare that against which ones have, quote, known vulnerabilities, that the vast majority of the vulnerabilities don't impact the final product. So you're actually wasting your time by upgrading all of these things because you haven't actually improved your security posture, you've improved your compliance posture. But from a security side, it doesn't.
Exactly. This is the point.
Yeah.
This is exactly my point.
Yeah. And frankly, that bears out research that we've done. Like it's hard to do. It's hard to do that analysis. But if you do, most vulnerabilities in open source don't have an impact on the applications that use them.
Yeah, my question is if because this is a process standardizing, I have no data, probably not enough machine power to collect this data, but sometimes the graph can be very deep. You can have a lot of levels, but the hypothesis, I am not totally sure, of course, is that the lowest level probably, even if they have medium vulnerability, are not so exploitable usually. So if you have a vulnerability, I think that can be exploitable in the primary dependencies and in the second level of the transitive dependency, maybe the third level, but more. And this idea, the project that you are sharing now could be used to say, after this dependency level, please increase or maybe decrease the medium.
Absolutely, yeah. So if you, the consumer, you have that hierarchical list of dependencies, you can run a policy against each one and then temper that policy or elevate it depending on where you are in the graph, and
exactly
any arbitrary thing. It lets you build out these systems on top of it. And just for FYI, like we do actually have this in the Omega tool. So this is all public, but the way that we do this for CodeQL is you get the output of a CodeQL scan for an NPM module. One of the files is the list of all dependent modules that control flow ends up in. So if you include Webpack, if you scan Webpack, you get a list of 35 or 50 or whatever it is, other components. And interestingly, there are lots of components that get installed when you do an npm install Webpack that are not in that list, which means those are eminently configurable. So that's in the tool chain. But yeah, so having this, having these attestations here's the other thing. You could also create the attestation that you attest that control flow does not pass from Webpack to foo. So you publish that as an assertion, and then your organization, another organization, whoever, can then rely upon that if they choose to, to make decisions based, so basically shortcut. So the purpose of all these assertions is to shortcut expensive work. So expensive work gets done once by someone that you trust in some way. And then you don't have to redo that work in order to get the same assurance. The whole purpose of any of this is to shortcut this. And for those of you that are thinking, well, how do we make sure the attackers don't add the stuff? So we have to figure out like exactly what the enveloping format, and is this SIG store or SCIT or in toto attestations or something else. Like, regardless of what those things are, this will be the payload inside of that, and you would be able to route your trust based on what's in what the envelope says. So you know, you could, like, Luigi, both you and I could provide assertions, and you could say that left pad is terrible, and I could say left pad is awesome. And you know, Amir, you as a consumer, you could be only trusting Luigi, and then when you evaluate your policy, you see that, you know, left pad is terrible and not trust it. So the way that you would establish those trusts, we'll leave that as an exercise to the reader, but like we'll you know, that obviously needs to get figured out before this is real. And the other thing is that because at least the way I'm imagining this is, because all these assertions would be in some sort of a registry, repository, transparency log, something, that organizations could run their own private ones with additional data or different data or whatever they want. Then you as a consumer could choose where do you point to, and you know, point to multiple, point to just your own or whatever, for this stuff.
Yes, about the how to not give too much information to attackers. I don't think it's so easy, honestly. And then
No, it's not. I mean so
if this approach of this product or this project, if we want that it is used by people, probably people can, in the set of people, you can have also malicious ones. So this is a point. And
absolutely, yeah. So but well, so those who are malicious would not be able to sign, I'm saying sign in the most general sense, sign something as someone who is trustworthy. You could, you know, add in your own assertion, and for those that consume, if you consume from anybody, well, you know, that's you should we should do our best to prevent that from happening. But if the, you know, if you trusted the attacker, then you trust the attacker. I think there's a couple different, there's like there's a how do you ensure that all the assertions that you rely upon are worthy of your reliance? And I think that there's I think there were different ways that we could get to that. And then there's are you providing so much information in the assertion clear text? So it's not even about do you trust it? It's just like download them all and look at them all, that you're providing a leg up to an attacker based off of that. And I think for some of these assertions, so imagine an assertion of, you know, is it being actively maintained? Or is it, does it have publicly known critical vulnerabilities today? Or is it reproducible? Or, you know, what are the, you know, the security scorecard, you know, data? These are all things that they're not vulnerabilities, they're kind of posture-y kind of statements. The security findings are going to be the harder one. Like, what do we actually provide? But I think that if we keep it to like aggregate numbers,
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I agree on the aggregate numbers. You can say you can use a boolean, so there is not the it's a present. This vulnerability is present or not. This kind of vulnerability, of course, without giving more information, at least for a certain period. Then maybe you can decide to disclose it in some way because it can be interesting. But
and I think I mean that also opens it up where you can say like this project has 42 untriaged potentially critical security findings. Or how I think you say the number of triaged ones is, well, either there has not been a triage, or there have been two different people that have triaged them, and both of them have provided an assertion that took that number from 42 down to 0. And maybe there's a trustworthiness or a reliance level that's different. So if it's untriaged, tools are tools, so maybe you don't care at all. You only care about the triaged ones.
Yeah, I think this is a good approach. I mean, especially the idea to have untriage bug. In general, they are helpful also for fuzzing or something similar. In the fuzzing, you can find a lot of bug, but this doesn't mean that there are security bug. And it's very difficult to read sometimes the fuzzing output to understand really. I mean, I use a very basic approach. If there is an error in the fuzzing, fix it. Without investigating more, because sometimes it's very difficult. And the idea to have an untriaged bug label or something similar, it can be very helpful in general. And then fuzzing is another big topic. And
and so I think this goes a little bit beyond. I mean, it probably goes a lot beyond security. So, someone on Twitter or Mastodon or somebody recommended, including the characteristics of the code. So we started out when we'll do like programming languages and file extensions as an assertion, and then we'll do like implements crypto, or is looks like a web service, or uses unsafe in Rust, or whatever else we can think of. And I think the direction I'm leaning is like, storage of assertions is cheap, production of assertions is cheap. So let's just create lots of them for all these things, and then have the policy the policy engine and consumption side filter out what it wants and what it cares about, and that way it's kind of future proof in some way. Any other thoughts from anybody else?
Make this tool easy to use, because one of the reasons why people don't use tool user is that it's too difficult.
Yep. So imagine the since I'm already sharing. So ease of use essential. So what would that look like? So npm run policy default, something like that, and then you see a left pad violates policy ABC because XYZ. Like, would that be, or one policy Yeah, something like that, where you as a consumer, the policy is, you know, like you would obviously have to publish a default opinionated policy. But then if an org wants to make up their own, they can do whatever they want. And the only thing that they need to have, maybe let me point my, you know.
Yes, in this way, it's very easy to implement in the CI. I think, I mean, at the moment I'm working on GitHub Action, but also CircleCI and Jenkins and other product. You can have an easy way to monitor your packages periodically, or when you push something new. I don't know. I mean, this is a choice by the consumer, but yeah, definitely something that I want to have. A JSON output, and a human output if you want to have want just to read.
Yep, that makes sense. So what I was thinking before with security insights is, you know, you could have a you could have an assertion as the assertion is being generated. So you have different assertions that you can generate. One of the assertions you could generate could be a get me the security insights data for this project. And so it reaches out to the repo, it looks for the file, grabs it, essentially wraps it, timestamps it, signs it, and sticks it in an assertion. Maybe parses out the stuff so it's a little bit, you know, maybe converts it to JSON or whatever. But then the policy can say you need to have a security.md file. But what that really means is you can either have a security MD file detected by scorecard or defined in security insights. So it provides additional information by which policies can be accurate in kind of intent. So yeah. And the nice thing is, like, you know, anybody could write their own assertion too. So, you know, if we didn't do that, like, you know, like literally you could, and then run that assertion yourself and dump results someplace. And so.
Yes, this project is cool.
Cool. What do you think of a better name though? Verde, I had salsa on my mind as I was thinking about this, so we need to come up with something better. But the other thing is, so I guess the most important thing is, like, I know that I'm playing in one end of the pool, and then the other end is Salsa and Skit and Sigstore and Intoto and lots of other players. And I want to make sure that I don't unknowingly either duplicate what they are doing or compete unnecessarily with what they're doing or things like that. And I don't think that I am here. I think that all of this is within the innermost predicate in Toto language, or you know, within the envelope from a Skit perspective. But I'm not 100% sure there, and you know, I just want to be conscious of this, that this is not intended to be an alternative to anything that already exists. Cool. Any other thoughts on this or anything else?
I think that it's also important to keep in mind the users, right? The organizations that will use that, they will have to understand what from the OpenSSF plenty of APIs that they can query to find out if to securely digest this dependency or not, right? We have scorecard API, we have this API. So how do they all work together as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some of that I think depends on like if these like where do these things physically live? Like what are they wrapped in? Like so naively, could I just say, let's just treat this as a SIG store and dump it in Recore? Like I don't know enough about like if that makes sense to, but let's suppose that was a totally reasonable like course to go. Then okay, maybe we do that, and then you just consume it from Recore like everything else, and you make decisions there. But maybe I'm completely misunderstanding like what actually goes in Recore, and it's like, well, no, that's just a signed hash. In Recore, what you need to do is you need to store the actual assertion in pick a play, in something else. In which case, all right, now we need to solve that and all that. But I think conceptually, if an organization is consuming Scorecard directly today, they have a project, they either run Scorecard or reach out somewhere and get Scorecard data from somewhere, and then evaluate and then look at it and say, oh, I care about actively maintained, so that's the field that I'm going to look at. And what this all would give you is a way to shortcut that and express a policy, and that your policy says, I care about actively maintained, run the policy against each thing, and then between the policy and wherever the assertions are stored is the you kind of abstracted away Scorecard away from actively maintained, I think. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So I don't know. It's
And do you see also a commercial kind of a strategy behind this? What I mean is like, would an organization such as, I don't know, Red Hat provide attestations of their own so that
Why not?
and enterprise organizations would look for their specific attestation? I think that is
Yep, I would say like so if organization foo does not trust OpenSSF to generate assertions because whatever reason, or they want all these assertions to be generated in secure enclaves, and we're not going to do them in secure enclaves because it's too expensive. Then Red Hat or anybody else can do that. In which case, you as a consumer can decide, I only trust Red Hat to generate my assertions, or the U.S. government, or anybody but the U.S. government, or whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Like so. And those assertions can either be commingled in the same repository because they're just, that's fine, or they can be in private repositories, even to the point that, suppose you had a security findings kind of assertion, and from an OpenSSF perspective, we decide that aggregated results is all we're going to do. We're just going to say, this is untriaged and it's for medium. But you as an organization, for your internal use, you've decided that, what, I want my developers to see the details because we want them contributing fixes back, and to have like, they can't really do anything with like medium 4 other than kind of worry a little bit. So you're going to create an assertion that kind of overlays on top of the existing one that says, medium 4 evidence, and then the raw details. And then your user base consumes your assertions because those are the ones that they trust. So I think there's I'm sure there'll be some interesting technical challenges in how to actually do that, but I think conceptually that makes sense. But as far as, would we OpenSSF or Alpha Omega like commercialize like how to do this? Like, no, we want this to be, free and available. We have a couple minutes left. Any other thoughts, comments on this or anything else? Cool. Well, you guys get 4 minutes back. Thank you very much. Appreciate the conversation. Please throw your comments in either the doc or the GitHub issue. Hoping that before the end of the year, end of the calendar year, we have something kind of nicely demoable and something that we feel pretty good about. But we'll see where it goes. If you want to participate like actively, feel free to reach out and we can do that. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one. See you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Thanks, Michael.